man just doing this? But when I go to my mother's house, I sit in the recliner, and here she comes. Hey, baby, what can I do for you? And I'll say things like, hey, Mom, you got any of those brownies? And she says, sure, you want 2 batches, or you want the double chocolate chip in it? And she comes running, and she'll give it, and she says, oh, you don't have a fork. Let me be right back. And she'll come running in the kitchen, and then she'll come back. She'll get halfway through it, and then she says, oh, you need some milk. And she just does this right here. And she's just running back and forth, and I'm just laying back there just relaxing. On the way home from Mom's house, my wife almost has to smack me and say, come back in line. Because it is so easy to be in an environment where you've been nurtured so much and you have no discipline. And many men I've found are in a place, and men, if we be honest, when we get married, we're just looking for mama with curves. We want somebody who's going, uh-oh, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. We just want mama with curves. Someone that can cook for us and clean for us and doctor on us and do everything for us. And we just want to sit back and act like we don't have nothing to do but just to lay there. Why? Because we're tired. And it breeds a mindset that if there's any type of demand placed on us whatsoever, we almost have backlash because we have problems. And I'm not saying this is everybody. But I'm saying the majority of us at least have this embedded in us to some extent. Can I just find somebody who's going to be honest and say, yeah, that's right. All right. Many men are in a place in the world today where we don't want to take responsibility for our actions. And the mentality is, well, I never had to do that growing up. Or my dad never did that. So why do I have to do that? Why do I have to be the one to help keep the checkbook? Why do I have to be the one to do the grocery shopping? Why do I have to be the one that goes to all the class recitals and everything? And I understand as a man somewhat that it's easy to be in a place where you get so busy and so consumed with things. But I want to check our priorities this morning. Can I talk about what a victim mentality really is just for a second? A victim mentality in the sense, childish thinking, victim mentality, it always talks about problems and never solutions. And the main reason is because it enjoys the intention that trouble brings. You know, when we filled out our connection surveys not too long ago for volunteers and finding areas of interest, the majority, I would say as much as 85%, were filled out by women. And that amazes me for no other reason than men, we almost feel like it's the women's job to solve all the trouble. If something needs to be done, we want to look at the woman. Is this too real today? I'm trying to help your life today, because I promise, if you apply these principles, something's going to happen and change your life. I believe God is calling us not to raise another generation that lives a life growing up in a breach relationship with full access for the enemy to come in and rob and steal things out of their life like they have successfully done in ours. I believe it's time to close the door. And one way we can do this is identify the problems and stop acting like there's not any. I'm sorry if you're a visitor today that you come in on this family meeting, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to have it today. Because I believe as a church, but more importantly, more than just a church, because first of all, we're called to be Christ-like. We're called to be examples. And even more than just assembling here together, it's not about this assembly together on Sundays and Wednesdays. It really has nothing to do with that. All this is simply a pep rally to get us excited so when we go back in the face of adversity, we can say, you know what? I've got a handful of people standing with me, and if they can do it, I can do it too. That's really all this is. But for whatever reason, we've got to get the mindset to understand that if there is trouble, we need to identify it. We have to release the mentality that trouble is what gets me attention. Because men, I know where you are because I live in it. It's very easy to whenever your wife gets sick to say, I'm sick too. It's very easy when your wife says, I'm tired. You say, I'm tired too. It's very easy. And as men, we've got to take some responsibility and quit acting like mama is nurturing us all the time. We've got to find some discipline, some common ground, and be real men that can stand up and say, you know what, I take responsibility for the breach in my family. I take responsibility for the action that's happened in my children. Why? It's just like our ministers Mark and Margie were teaching. Inevitably, before the child ever got arrested, there was some type of rebellion in his life that you never dealt with in the first place. And usually that's because mama's trying to pet it, and daddy needs to put his hand down and say, guess what? It's not working like that today. I'm putting my foot down, and if I have to do it with a belt, and if that's too graphic for you, maybe you need to counsel it out. Whatever it takes to get it out. Men, it's time we began to take hold of our family and stop letting all the trouble come and go and enjoy the attention of what it's like to have someone focus on us for a minute and start putting the focus off of us and onto our family, into our marriages, into our spouse, into our relationships with our friends. No wonder you feel lonely all the time. In reality, no one wants to be your friend because every time they're around you, you make everything about you. You can come to choir practice. Everything is about you. It's called the victim mentality. You can be on the job around the water cooler, and it could be any type of conversation, and somehow everything always gets turned around about you because you can't talk about anybody else but you. And I believe that that's a mentality that has to be broken. And if I had somebody that could identify and really say, you know what, that's probably in me just a little bit, I believe God is big enough this morning to set you free and turn your life around. What I'm talking about today is releasing and changing the mindset, because we will never walk in the inheritance that God has for us with a mentality that everything is everybody else's fault. Because if that was the case, that means I couldn't do anything to change it. But I'm at least 50% of the problem. That means I'm already halfway to the answer if I can just change my big self around. Can I get a witness from anybody here today? Because I believe the mindset that everything is everybody else's fault is a lie from the devil. It's not your spouse's fault. It's not your kid's fault. You can't blame how you were raised or what situation you were raised in, because inevitably God called you to be a man and gifted you and crafted you with everything on the inside of you to be who you're called to be. And the problem is that, and let me just take it even a step further, you are not witnessing hanging around all your old friends. Just because you got saved and you're still running around all those people that's still doing the same thing, that is not witnessing. What you are simply doing is you are surrounding yourself by people that are conscientious of your negative behavior, don't criticize you for that, and never challenge to make you better. Because it's much easier to surround yourself by people that are worse and in situations worse than you are to make yourself feel better, because in reality it takes too much time and energy to produce results. And I believe it's a lie. We've got to get to the place, man, where we understand. I know this is harsh, but I do it because I love you. I honestly mean that. I love you, and I refuse to see us as a group of men here in this church to sit with our hands folded. Instead of standing on the promises, we're sitting on the premises. It's time we get involved and do something. We've got hands, and God has anointed our hands to give order, discipline, and instruction. It amazes me how many men don't even have a revelation of what God even gave them their wife. Your wife is designed to be a helpmeet. She's designed to help you, but she can't help you sleep on the couch. She can't help you mow the grass, but there is some things she can help you do. God has called you to be visionary, to see things that need to be done and say, honey, how am I going to do it? And her nurturing nature is there to pat you on the back every time you fall and get dirty and busted up and say, get up, honey, we can do this. But instead, it's almost the opposite role. If the woman is the one that does everything in the church, and it's almost being in the case in the world, even in the corporate world. There is almost, it used to be a time when due to the women's rights movements, women weren't allowed in the workplace. Now, guess what? It's almost even, and in some situations, even plateaued higher than more men. There's more women in the workforce than men in some career fields. And that amazes me, because there was a time that wasn't happening. What does it tell me? There's a group of men that, because they were so nursed by mama and because they tried to marry mama, feels like they're still with mama, and through the process never take discipline in their own life, and they're reliant on their helpmeet to do everything to make ends meet. And reality, God is saying, I place those there to help you. Somebody say help. As men, we've got help, but guess what? We really have to do it ourselves. I love the fact we have women working in this ministry, and I'm not ever trying to lose you or tell you to go, but I'm looking for some Holy Ghost men that can do more than just be an usher. Thank you for that, because that did not go over well at all. I'm looking for some Holy Ghost men that can stand outside on this parking lot and help direct traffic, help do whatever needs to be done. They can help run, even if you don't know how to do something. Guess what? We can train you. That's the beauty of it. We've got people that know how to do it, that can help you learn. I'm looking for some men that when the devil tries to get in the family, can put their foot down and say, you've got to go through me first. And I'm looking for those